Welcome to the Mike White Podcast, where I, Mike White, share my conversations and book reviews through my journey to learn all that goes on in this amazing world. Buckle up and enjoy the ride. All right, guys, welcome to the Mike White Podcast. Today on the show, I have a rideshare driver, James Bryant. Met him last week here at the Magnolia Cafe. I was getting some pancakes. It's been a while since I've been in Austin, and this was a place I really liked. So I was right down the road. I was like, gotta go. Ended up sitting at the bar and met you. Found out you're a rideshare driver. I've been dipping my toe in since I've been in Austin. I need to start doing it more. And you just had a lot of advice, so I'm glad you agreed to come on the podcast.
Well, first off, I'm humbled by you asking me to be here because I went through and looked at some of your podcasts, and you've had some. It's great. You've had some pretty awesome people on your podcast. So yeah, I'm humbled to be here. But
thanks.
Thanks for having me.
No, yeah, I just want to see everyone's perspective, and anyone doing something cool. It's like anyone doing anything can come on my podcast. First off, if you want to just let me know. And but there's so much to talk about, so much in this world that people don't even know of. Like the whole rideshare industry, I didn't know how it went until I started actually doing it. But
Right.
You can save yourself a lot of the lessons if you hear from someone that's like yourself and doing it for over a year full time.
I'm about a year in. I started right after my birthday last year. My birthday's in January, so I've been doing it a year and 3 months at this point.
Yeah, it's a good while.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. I've met a lot of people. I get to do. I get to be in the city that I love. I love this city. There's so many different things that you can see and do in the city. Our biggest event of the city just passed. This past weekend, South by Southwest. And so if you're a rideshare driver and you weren't working this weekend, you missed it. Like that was the weekend that you needed to be out there because it's an international event now. Like this is when Austin is center stage on the worldwide stage for roughly 2 weeks, with the festival. And so airport runs, everything was like busy downtown. And then, you throw in that rain that kind of threw everybody for a loop there Friday where they had to move some stuff around. When it rains, nobody wants to walk.
No one's walking. It's good for business.
So yeah, you should have been in the streets this weekend if you were a rideshare driver.
Yeah, I didn't do it as much as I should have, but like you said, it's worldwide because the few days I did do it, I met someone from New Zealand that came out here.
Mm-hmm.
There was a whole band from England that I met coming out here. So it's just getting bigger and bigger. So I think next year, especially now that all the COVID restrictions are gone, it's going to be prime time.
Definitely. Well, South by for me has always kicked off kind of a busy season. It's like the first big event. Excuse me. It's the first big event. This next event that we have is the Dell Match Play that's going on this week. I don't know if they did anything with the weather the way it's been, but we've got that golf tournament this week. Then the NCAA has a game here, I think, at some point, like women's basketball or something like that. And basically, there's an event that happens every week all the way up until June 1st. So if you're in the business, if you kind of want to try it out, this is the season to do so. Typically, once school lets out, that's the slow season. That's you're going to want to hang out at the lake because, everybody goes out to Lake Travis. They hang out with their friends on the party barge, and they need a ride back into town. And so that's where a lot of the business is.
Yeah, and we don't have to talk numbers because we did last week a little bit, and I was like, you were making significantly more per hour than I make. And I think that one of the things is you're doing your research. You told me about the GridWise app,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can see what's going on and just be in tune with the city to know like these events are happening and that's where you need to be. So I think your strategy doing that is one reason that you've been able to do so well with rideshare. I don't know if that's accurate.
Definitely. You got to think about where people are going to be. If there's going to be an event, and even there's times where stuff is happening down, like, for example, Harry Styles came last year, and, I was able to get tickets to one of his shows one night, but
Nice.
that man, he's the only person that I've seen who played the Moody Theater 6 nights in a row and it was sold out all 6 nights.
Wow.
Like, to be able to be a part of that and see that and see everybody having a blast, and that's one thing that I really like about rideshare driving is you get to hang out with people during a time in which they're having fun in their life. They're out having fun with their family and friends, and you get to make sure that they get home safe
I
and take care of them.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoy it, and it's a lot of energy and just a sense of life type thing. And so I want to get into how you decided to take that jump of going full time rideshare, because you had a steady career before. So why did you
Right.
decide, oh, I'm going to go drive for a rideshare company?
Well, that's a direct result of COVID. So, to make a long story short, 2020 was my daughter's year to start kindergarten. And that year, it's the week of school start. And her mom and I, we didn't know if the district was going to be in person. We didn't know if they were going to be virtual. If they were going to be virtual, what platform were they going to use? How do we get this set up? Does she need, a laptop? Is she going to need a tablet? What is it? And so when you're literally in the 11th hour of the first impression of school with your daughter, like, however this plays out is going to be her first impression and what she's going to think about of school for the rest of her life. So it has to go well.
Yep.
That being said, and see the disorganization in the district, we made the decision to homeschool both of our children. And at the time, I was in a chemical sales job and essentially on a plane twice a week, out of town 5 of the 7 days of the week. And that just didn't fit with homeschooling 2 kids and running a household as a single dad. It just didn't fit. So I had to step back and take some time away. And in that time, I became a licensed insurance agent. I learned a lot about the financial world and kind of started dipping my toe into that realm a little bit, and realized that, in order to be successful, you have to build your practice. In order to build it the right way, to get the clientele that I wanted to keep and manage personally, it takes time. So, when you take a year off and you don't put any money in the bank, there comes a point where you're like, all right, we got to do something. It doesn't matter if this is going to be your career for the rest of your life, but you have to do something to put money in the bank. That way, we can move forward. And so a friend of mine who he had been Ubering for a little bit, and he's like, hey man, try this out. I'm like, whatever. That was during the holidays. It was probably somewhere in between Thanksgiving and Christmas when he kind of threw the idea at me.
Yeah.
I downloaded the app and kind of poked around a little bit, and I was like, you know what, run all your background checks, and then we'll figure it out come the first of the year. So Christmas happened, my birthday happened, and I was like, you know what, all right, it's time. I got to put money in the bank. And I was approved with everything. Background check came clean, but whatever. So off I went. And I was like, we're going to give this a week, and I want to see, what happens at the end of the week. I made a lot more money than I could have ever, ever even thought of driving people around. And I was like, okay, cool. I mean, this is something that fits. And the biggest piece was the flexibility of it.
Yeah.
The fact that, when Charlotte, my daughter, says, hey, Dad, I have a t-ball game at this time, I don't have to ask permission from anybody. I don't have to say, hey, can I go do this? No, it's just, okay, I'll be there.
It's awesome.
And, for your kids to be able to do that, and, like my son in Taekwondo, and he had Taekwondo tournaments at that time. There was no, there's no other peace of mind that you can find other than to be able to just tell your kids, okay, fine, I'll be there. I didn't have to worry about that anymore. Like, that fear of losing my job was gone. So that feeling, combined with the fact that the money's, you can pay your bills.
Oh yeah,
Right?
especially the way you're doing it.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, you can pay your bills, right? You're not going to get rich. I mean, but as far as like putting food on the table, making sure that there's enough money in the bank for the monthly things, you can do that.
And I think that's great. When you assessed, okay, my daughter's going to kindergarten. I don't like the way this setup is going to be during the pandemic, and like everyone has that why of why they're working. Maybe they truly just really love their job, but most likely they like their job, but it's mainly to put food on the table, to support a family, to do other things you want to do as well. You don't just want to live at work. So you assess like, okay, these priorities are conflicting,
Right.
and said this is the best path forward. Where a lot of people kind of get stuck in that the daily grind and something to fall back on, and they don't want change. But I think that's very unique in your situation. If you really assessed and thought what you valued, and you made the jump, and it seems like a much better quality of life for you
Definitely.
now than previous.
So it hasn't all been cakes and pies and rainbows. There was I don't know if you remember when Biden and Putin got in that little pissing contest, and I woke up one day. It was after. It was probably beginning of March that year when the gas prices jumped up.
Mm.
So at that time, I had a 2017 Chevy Cruze. It was a Chevy Cruze diesel, so I was getting.
Ooh.
The thing about that car is when I parked it, it had 190,000 miles on it, and it was reliable. Like I could get in that car, made it through Snowmageddon, right? It was old faithful. Like never left me on the side of the road. Wasn't much to look at, but you know what? It had leather seating and a sunroof and a heated steering wheel, right?
And leather seats huge for ride sharing,
right,
because
exactly. So anyway, it was a great car. There was nothing wrong with it. But when Biden and Putin started doing their thing, suddenly my daily operating costs went from $25 to $30 a day,
yeah,
to $60 a day.
yeah.
Like, what?
Especially diesel shot up there.
It did. $65 a day.
Yeah.
Times 30 days. That's $1,950 in fuel.
Yeah. And then tires and miles on your car.
Just add it up. Like, here we are at what? You've lost your mind.
Yeah.
So, again, you have, like you said, you have to assess the situation and adapt. And there was a partnership that was developed to where we could get into Teslas, and we could lease Teslas, do long-term lease Teslas with unlimited mileage. I'm a car guy. Like my first career in life was with CarMax. I worked for them for quite some time. I'm no longer with them anymore. So, I mean, they get mad because I mentioned them on whatever. But anyway, you had to reassess the situation because at that time, you can't just double your operating cost and just absorb it and move on. You have to figure out a way to like you said, reinvent yourself. And so looked at the Teslas. I'm not really much of at the time, I wasn't really much of an electric car guy because I worked on them. Like, it's too simple. Like, really, a battery and two motors, like, that's too easy.
Yeah.
Something's off about that. So anyway, I was like, fine, whatever, let's try it. The numbers lined up. Like, you look at the amount of the lease and, the fact that insurance is covered in there, like your insurance is in the lease, your charging is all in there. So basically you have this one bill and it covers your charging, it covers your full coverage insurance and the car. And at that time, that number was a lot less than what I was spending in fuel.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Let's see how this works. Well, Teslas are very fun to drive. Like, they're the acceleration on these things is wicked. Like,
right away, instant.
Yeah, instantaneous. And Camaros and Mustangs hate me. They hate me because it's like they pull up to you next to you at the light and they want to launch off with you, and it's like, dude, no.
It's not even close.
No.
Maybe full speed, like if they after they get to full speed, they might be able to beat the Tesla, but the acceleration just
No.
blows out of the water.
They have to burn the gas and shift the gears. No, we
Yeah.
don't. We don't. we don't need that. So that being said, and then when the kids got in it, like they were just thrilled because, oh my god, dad got a Tesla, and it's like, really, this is what y'all want to drive? And then Lucas gets in the front seat, starts pushing buttons, poking around on the tablet, right? Makes it fart.
Oh gosh, yep.
Like, really?
Yeah.
$60,000 ride, and you want to make it fart? Like, that's what you choose to do with your life? Okay, fine.
My little cousins, that's the feature they love the most. I met them this summer, and just driving them around you do like the turn signal and you can activate it, and just every time they just bust out laughing like they never got tired of it.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing too is, evidently there's a light show that comes out with these things.
Yeah.
Like, it does the whole trunk and lights and windows, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
I did it. I think it was like during Christmas. They had a Christmas theme one.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was legit.
Yeah. So, that, and then, it's a good car to ride in. Like, it's smooth. It's quiet. Like, it's the quietest car I've ever driven, and the funnest car that I've ever driven. So, okay, cool. Like, comfortable with a Tesla, but the question was at that time, is that a viable long-term solution? And April 1st of last year was when I got into the Tesla, and I'm not going back.
Yeah, because not only is so many benefits that it's a fixed cost, so exactly you don't have to worry about what's going on with gas prices. That all that concern is it's unless they change the structure of the deal, you're pretty sure it's going to be this every month. And then I bet for your ratings too, people love riding in these things, so
Right.
you're going to get better ratings.
Exactly. The cost is the biggest piece.
Mm-hmm.
I know tomorrow how much it's going to cost me to run the car and to move my family around, as well as work. Yes, people do love riding in Teslas. When you pull up and you're people that have never been in one get super excited. You have to talk them through how to get in because I don't have I'm not like yours. Mine, you have to use your thumbs to get in.
The doors,
the
the
doors.
handles are all weird.
And it's always hilarious when people are intoxicated and you got
You got to get out of the car or something.
well, you got to talk them through getting in the car, and they're like, "Man, this car is too fancy for me," and whatnot. And then, man, I couldn't figure out how to get in this car. Okay, great. Well, wait till you have to figure out how to get out.
No handle? How do you
They
get out
look
of this?
down and there's no door handle. They're like, "Whoa." Yeah, so it's fun. You get to meet people of all walks of life. I've had some really cool rides. I met last year for South by, and this I can't believe that this has already happened last year, a year ago. But I met some filmmakers from France who came over here because last year was the first year that South by had happened since the pandemic, and it was kind of the first festival that went off worldwide. Like, I think that was kind of the trial stage of post-COVID stuff. It was great, but no, the filmmakers that came in and I don't know how we got on the topic of reinventing yourself, probably because we're similar, you and I. But one thing that came out of their conversation was how they were getting creative in releasing a lot of new films, and how now, like, the big cameras that used to be on your shoulder and stuff like that, a lot of those are going away because technology has advanced so much that most filmmakers, like a lot of new filmmakers, are using simply the iPhone or their iPad or stuff like that. And yeah, it's pretty cool to see a lot of that technology develop and like morph and grow into society.
And being a driver, you get to be almost on the cutting edge of all that kind of stuff. My similar experience, not that it wasn't a good one. It was bad news came out with the bank failures. And then I got some people in the back seat saying, "Move $500,000 to this account, do this, do that," and people, they were freaking out.
Yeah.
And
So I think the last time that you and I talked, it was just one. It was just the one that had failed.
yeah,
But going into this, more that are failing. It's like, the FDIC did the right thing. They stepped in and they covered, deposits. But if you had investments, I think, in some of those banks, then they weren't covered. You lost your money. And, knowing what I know about the financial world, a lot of those deposits probably should have been in like more secured assets as far as like, I don't know. I know that a lot of those companies were startup companies. They should have structured their investments a little bit better, maybe structured annuities to where they could still have access to that capital.
this is one topic I love to talk about. So I don't know if my understanding is first off, we don't have a free banking system, so it's very much regulation driven, and that I think is inherently going to fail. I think it's almost just like it's impossible to pick prices. I don't think the Fed can pick the right interest rate for the market, because it's so unknown. There's so many factors.
Right.
So with the Fed, they had the zero interest rates for so long, and people were thought, oh, easy day. We'll buy these treasuries, these long-term treasuries, and they got so much overweight. What do you call it? Unbalanced on those. So when the rates start going up, and then economy starting to slow down, people are needing to withdraw money. They have to sell. They have to get the money somehow. So they're starting to sell those at a loss, and so now these banks are reporting losses, and that's when the venture capitalist guy, I think Peter Thiel was one of the big names that came out. Was like, hey guys, this bank has way too many long-term treasuries. I don't really trust them. I don't think you should. Like, let's get our money out. And then once that little contagion happens, or people see blood, and then they start withdrawing all their money out, and it's unstable because everything's fractional reserve, which I think fractional reserve is fine as long as you know it's fractionally reserved. But it's inherently unstable, like when it's that much.
Right.
So I still think we're early. There's still a lot to see how all this falls out.
I think you're right there. It's like the first one happened, and it's kind of like pulling the first pickle out of the pickle jar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we got to see who else is involved. I'm curious to see, is the Fed going to is the FDIC going to do the same thing with each bank that they did with this one, to where the people that had their money in there that was over $250,000, are they going to guarantee the people's money, or are they just going to, well, we did it once, can't afford to do it again?
Well, it's so unknown that I think there's a huge incentive if you have over 250K in any small bank, any bank that's not the too big to fail, to put it in a too big to fail bank.
But does that help the running situation, the run on the bank, or is that just like...
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
That's the but that's I don't see how this is going to end well.
No. This is just the beginning. It's a cliff.
Yeah. And I think tomorrow they're going to announce the rate, if they're going to change the rate at all, whatever Fed funds rate. And so some people, I don't know, what I've been reading, people think they're still going to raise the rate a little bit, 25 basis points, which is going to still continue to add more stress.
It's definitely going to add more stress. And, you look at this city, how many people are moving into this city that need mortgages? 2 years ago, a mortgage was no big deal because, I'm not paying any interest on it. But now you're talking about, I have to spend what, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 on interest. I mean, depending on the size of your loan.
Yeah.
But now we're pricing people out of homes.
Yeah, if you look at the monthly payments, they're like double what they were 5 years ago for the same.
But how many homes are we building in this city every day?
I don't think enough. I think there's more demand still. I don't know what your take is.
I think that people are still going to move here. I think definitely people are still going to move here because there's so much in this city.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's a lot of federal money that's here. This is the new tech capital of probably the world, but um, because of that, people are still going to move here. But are they going to buy homes? It's not a good idea to do it right now.
Hey, I don't know. Not many people can. It's just
Right.
so there's anything available is so expensive. So
Yeah. So I think that's going to drive down the price of the homes.
yeah.
And I'm curious to see what impact that has on, I mean, us as a city, as a market, as a real estate market. I'm curious to see how home prices change because I mean, there's a lot for sale right now, but they're still fairly pricey. I mean, Austin is one of the most expensive housing markets right now in the U.S.
Hmm.
I'm curious to see, do those prices come down, or are they going to hold steady because of everybody that's moving here? Who knows?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of unknown, and maybe or more people are going to try to rideshare drive to supplement the income, or
Hey,
is going to be more competition.
I think so. I know that in the summertime, one of the reasons, well, the two biggest reasons why it slows down in the summertime are because teachers and students are off, and they have more time on their hands. So it's a good part-time gig during the summer, and so a lot of people do it. And so for somebody like me who does it full time, you slow down a little bit,
Yeah,
and you just have to prepare for that. Like it's coming. The slow season's coming, so you have to be out in the streets as much as you can. March, April, May, and June. Those are the big ticket items where you need to be out there. Um, and it's fun too. Like you get to be out in the city and meet cool people and and have fun too on your own.
yeah. See new places, see all over Austin. So
Yeah, exactly.
I got some questions for you
Okay, let's have it.
to wrap it up. But so most memorable passenger.
Most memorable passenger.
Yeah.
There was one ride that I did a while back. I very vividly remember the ride. It was in the middle of rush hour one day, and I had pulled up to this house, and I was sitting there waiting, and the timer runs, so I'm watching the timer, and for me, either you need to be at the car by the time the timer runs down. I'm not gonna if you're getting in the car at the end of the time, I'm gonna hang out and wait for you. But like if I don't see you, if I don't have a message from you, no activity in this situation, like I'm getting ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm sitting there waiting, and I realized that it was going to be a left side pickup. I'm not a fan of left side pickups because that means that somebody's either getting in the car behind me, which, mind you, I've just met this person. I don't know who they are, and I'm not a fan of not being able to see you behind me.
Yeah, I like the back passenger seat's the best.
Yeah, I would rather you sit back passenger. A lot of people want to sit up front. Cool. I'm fine with that. Just don't touch the driver, right?
Rule number one.
So anyway, this particular ride, I'd been sitting there. The timer's almost at the end, and I look up, and it's this lady and her husband or her significant other are coming out of the house, and he's helping her out of the house. And I don't know, I never got out of her exactly what it was, but you could tell that she had been suffering from some sort of debilitating disease to where she was walking with two canes.
Yeah.
So now I feel like an asshole. Because
like, hurry up.
Like I'm sitting there, right, in a hurry trying to get out of there. And anyway, so at that point, I was like, you know what? I need to turn the car around. And, they're coming down the driveway, so I knew that I had time to turn. So I turn the car around, and I get out and I help her in the car. And when I walk around the car, I see that the husband doesn't have any shoes on, and he has no intention of going on this ride. And I'm like, he looks at me square. It's about the time that I look down and see that he doesn't have any shoes on, I look at him, and he looks me square in the eye, and he says, I really need you just to make sure that she's okay before you leave her and she's going to the grocery store.
Why isn't he going with her?
Because what I later found out that was her last chance at independence.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's at the end. She knows when the end is coming.
Yeah.
And that was going to be her last chance to go to the grocery store by herself.
Wow.
So, it humbled me because, yeah, you want to get out there. You want to meet, they give you a quota to meet. You want to meet your quest or whatever it is you want to call it. You want to make your money. But you have to remember that you're moving people. And people need love and respect. And if you aren't in the mindset to be able to deliver that consistently every day, then you shouldn't do it.
Gosh, I mean, I can only imagine how much that meant to her in the last days to actually be able to have that alone time and feel that independence. I didn't think of it at first when you're starting down the story, but that makes a lot of sense. And that's, I mean, back before this, I guess you had taxis, but it doesn't compare. So I think this new technology is just awesome, and
right.
I'm glad it was embraced. I know there was like some rough patches, but like you said, it really provides a lot of value.
Right, exactly.
Gosh.
And when we got to the grocery store, I don't think I've ever had any other passenger that was more grateful than she was. Because, I got to the grocery store, helped her get her shopping cart, and she looked back and she said, I really, really appreciate you. And, that was one of those rides where you just refund the money on.
Yeah, it's, gosh. Well, I'm going to try not to tear up and move on to the next question. But that's a great story. Do you have a horror story of being a driver?
So this one was recent. This one was before even the South by South, which is what threw me off about this ride. It was in the middle of the week, like a Wednesday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Middle of the week is usually the slowest. And I was, out doing my normal thing, and I get this ride to pick up over off of 4th Street. Okay, cool, whatever. So I pull up. It's a couple who's making out, right? Guy and a girl. And this other dude, third guy, who was the one that ordered the ride. I forget the name, whatever. Well, I call him Blue Eyes because he got in the front seat and, had bright blue eyes in the middle of the night, right? But white shirt gets in the back with the girl. And the girl's sitting behind me. So I can't see what she's doing. They're listening to music. They're making out. I'm talking to the guy in the front seat, and he's like, "Yeah, we're having our joint bachelorette party." And I'm like, "Okay, cool, whatever." Or bachelorette, we're having a joint party. And I didn't think anything of it when he said that. I just assumed that his fiance was somewhere else, and this was a friend that he went out with. Cool, whatever. Well, in the middle of all that, homegirl starts playing with the seatbelt, right? She's messing with my seatbelt. She's like, "Oh, I like your hat," and starts to pull my hat off. And I'm like, no.
Rule number 1, don't touch the driver.
Don't touch exactly. Don't touch the driver. So anyway, she's reaching around the seat, feeling on my chest. I'm like, "Look, okay." I stopped the car. I was like, "Look, I just need you to sit back, be quiet, and enjoy the ride." Right? She's like, okay. So she calms down and they go back to making out or whatever it is they're doing. And I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. We get going down the road again. Well, as I'm talking to Blue Eyes sitting up front, come to find out, that's his fiance.
Oh, that's gonna be a great marriage.
I was like, what?
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I have no clue. But you drop at that point, you drop them off and you're like, what the hell was that? Right?
I don't think they were messing. I bet do you think there was a chance they were messing with you? Or?
I have no.
Probably not.
I don't know, but Leave me out of it. Like,
Gosh.
like, don't touch me. Like, for real. So yeah, that was a situation where it's like I have never. There's only been one other time when I got scared, like for my personal safety. You know what I mean? Because I don't know what her plans were or his plan. Because those two were very obviously intoxicated. I mean, at least there was one level-headed one of the bunch to where, you know, if things went sideways, I mean, I could reason with. But those two, no. That was probably, I think, the second worst ride. The other ride was, I picked up somebody from downtown, and I was taking them home. Got pretty far south, going down towards Slaughter, whatever, and he didn't want to get out of the car.
Was he conscious?
Barely,
Oh,
but
okay.
severely intoxicated.
Yeah.
I'm like, here's your stop, and I'm like, no, you need to get out of the car. I need you to get out of the car now. And he looks at me and he says, nope, I think I'd rather just beat your fucking ass. Oh, really?
Jeez.
So, anyway, the cops got called on that one.
Wow.
But I've done 7,000 rides. Out of 7,000 rides, there was one where the police got involved because of somebody being unruly. There was another one where those two filling me up, and then there was an argument between a husband and wife. That was the longest ride from Cedar Park I've ever done.
Oh gosh.
In my life. It was picked him up at the Domain, right? And as I'm pulling off, I hear somebody yell his name, and I stop, and she runs up to the car. And she says, "You're going to leave without me?" And I look back at him. I'm like, you ordered the ride. This is your ride. What? No, let her in the car. So I let her in the car. And they fought like cats and dogs. Like just petty. Like back and forth, nip it the whole way. And to the point in which rumble strips. Look. I need you to sit back and be quiet and enjoy the ride. Otherwise, you can get out because it's his ride. You're disturbing the peace. You can get out. You can stay right here and wait for call you another one, because you two together right now is toxic. Like, no, stop. So they got quiet for about 5 minutes, and then she just started in on him, and I'm like, really? Please just be quiet until like. So anyway, yeah, that was not a good ride.
So do you give him 5 stars?
No.
Or what's the lowest? What did that deserve?
That's definitely a 1
That's
star.
a 1 star.
Yeah. And I give people a 5-star rating. The only way that you get rated by me is A, you're a little asshole, like just being disrespectful. B, if I have to clean up after you, now I'm being dad to you. I got 2 kids at home. No, that rated. And then 3 is like, if you're just not cooperating, then no, you don't get 5 stars.
What's your take on conversation? Do you start the conversation or do you wait till they talk to you?
I read the situation. This past Sunday, there was a couple that I picked up who had just gotten married. They made a reservation, and I was picking them up from their wedding venue and taking them to their hotel.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
I was taking them to their hotel, and I didn't have any music on in the car because I feel the situation out. Most times I have a playlist going. I have a couple playlists that I use, but in reservations, I feel out the ride, because a lot of times people, especially in a situation like this where they've had people in their face all day, like they got up at 5:45 to start getting ready for the wedding. They had the wedding, they had the reception. They've had people in their face all afternoon, like all evening, and here it is midnight. and they've been drinking probably for the last 4 hours. They got in the car and I put their stuff in the trunk. I got in the car and they're both back there. They both have their heads back on the seat. I look back. Y'all all right? Yeah, we're just ready to go to the hotel. And at that point, they're just excited to have some peace and quiet. You know what I mean? So at that point, there's no need for music. Just chill out. Give them their peace and quiet that they need. And because that's probably going to be the only 15 minutes that they have before they go get on a plane to go on their honeymoon.
Yeah, I agree. And there's music I would like to listen to, but I never play it. The only music I would play is classical, like some jazz. I have this like morning jazz station.
Okay.
But most of the time, like especially when it's like an older couple, they always like compliment me on it. But then when you're doing it at night in the bars, it feels wrong. So I don't know. What do you do? Do you just do no music? Like, would you recommend no music there?
If I'm doing what I call the drunk run, which is those hours between midnight, sometimes even 11:30, till like 2:45, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
That's a playlist that I have that has some upbeat music like "Living on a Prayer" by Bon Jovi.
Okay. It's a little rock.
Lil Rock, Middle Child by J. Cole.
Some range.
Yeah, Outkast. John Mellencamp.
Wow, this is quite the playlist. I might need to.
I'll send it to you.
Steal this from you.
But that's a really upbeat, like that's some stuff that you can listen to in your driveway as you're pulling out to, like, if you were gonna go out that night and you wanted to get pumped up, that's something that you would listen to in your driveway as you're pulling out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's another playlist that I have. It's more of a chill vibe, which I use because there's that point there's always that shift in the middle of the night. I drive overnight mostly, but there's always that shift in the middle of the night where, after midnight, I start telling people good morning, and the ones that are pissed off about it have been in the bar all day.
Yeah.
And they're like, "What? I have stuff to do today?" Yeah, it's morning. Bro, I have a plane to catch at 6. Well,
not gonna get much sleep.
You're gonna get about 3 hours of sleep. Then I'll see you to take you to the airport. But there's always that point where the people quit getting mad at you for saying good morning, and they're happy that it's good morning. Those are the ones that have slept, and they're starting their day.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily ready to hear your dance mix playlist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's got EDM music on it or whatnot. They're probably not gonna want to hear that. So I have another playlist. I call it my chill playlist. It's got some Mac Miller on there. It's got some BB King. It's got Jasmine Sullivan on there. Erykah Badu. But it's a really mellow playlist.
And most of those people are probably on their way to the airport, getting like an early flight.
Right.
I would imagine.
And a lot of people commute too, using Uber.
Yeah. I was a lot of at night when I was doing it at night. A lot of the night guards or night shift people.
Yes. They need rides. I mean, everybody's just, and that's the thing is what I've learned is most people are just trying to get where they're going. They're just trying to live their life, and it's not that they don't care about the Uber driver. It's just that, you're a vessel to help them get to the next step. And I try to approach it from that mentality. I'm here to help you. And it's been successful.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's like you said, the flexibility, the value you provide, seeing like the sense of life type thing. I think is very a rewarding way to make some a good little living there. And last thing on a rideshare is you're talking about like tax strategies last time we met. What would you recommend for someone to do regarding that?
So first off, track your expenses. Like anything that is associated with your car. Like if you're out and you have to, like, I need to put washer fluid in the car. If you go buy washer fluid, that's an expense. If you buy tire shine, that's an expense. If you have a membership to the car wash, that's an expense. Track all of that stuff, because at the end of the year, your tax guy will be able to take all of that stuff as deductions or write-offs for you. Now, there's going to come a point where if you're doing it as much as I am, like a full time, you get to a point to where it's like, okay, you really need to restructure. You need to set up your own LLC, and you need to go on a W-2 for yourself, because then you're allowed more deductions for the business, because now at that point
Your business.
you are a business. You are a legitimate business.
Yep.
And you need to make sure that you're tracking your expenses. That way you can get all that, get at least some of that money back. And once you do that, I mean, it opens up a whole nother level of opportunities for you,
Mm-hmm.
business wise. Then you start looking at, well, can I finance, another car? Like, does it make sense to for me to bring on another car? That's something that I'm kind of exploring right now. Yeah, it's pretty cool to level up like that,
Yeah,
to
level
where
up.
to be able to say I work, but I work for myself.
Exactly. No, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. So when you work for somebody and they're dictating the schedule, they're telling you when you have to be at work. But when you work for yourself, you have to make sure that you have the self-discipline.
Yeah.
You have to rely on that self-discipline to get out there in the streets, because there are some days where I wake up and I really don't want to.
Yep.
But it's time. You got to go, and you have to have that self motivation, that self actualization, to be able to get up and get out there. Just go get out there, man. That's all you got to do. Get out the door. Once you get out the door and you're out in the streets, you're fine.
Keep going, yeah, keep
Right?
rolling.
You're gonna you'll get rolling. You'll keep going. Now, there's some days, especially in the middle of the summer, there's some days where you get out there and you'll go 45, 50 minutes, no ride. All right, call it night. I'm going home, and it's cool because you get home early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially I like podcasts. So I if I'm waiting at all, which right now there's so much demand, I don't ever wait that much long at all. But I would
No.
just be playing a podcast, and so you can do a lot of stuff that you would at home in your car while you wait.
Definitely.
Which is nice.
I read a lot. I read a lot, and Audible is also cool, because there's times where I know it only takes 30 or 45 minutes to charge the car, right? But if you're working 12/6 like I was this weekend, 12 on, 6 off, and you go, all right, I need to charge the car right before I get home. You lay back, turn the book on, and you lay back and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to get up. You got 30 minutes left? Hey, Siri, set a timer for 30 minutes. 3 hours later, you're waking up, the sun's beaming down, and you're like, oh, dang it.
I wish I could say I've never done that before, but I know exactly how you feel.
Yeah. You fall asleep with the supercharger. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's just part of it, man. No, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Is there anything else you think for rideshare wise that you want to talk about, or that I didn't ask you? Think I'm missing?
I don't think so.
I do want to dive into the last time we met. You said you have a koi pond, or you're into koi fish.
Yes.
Which I've never met anyone with a koi pond, so I want to hear about how this came to be and how you're liking that.
So in 2020, when we were under quarantine, mind you, there was one point. Well, first off, when quarantine started, my kids had gone on spring break. They went to Ohio with their mom to see their grandmother, that side of the family. And so COVID is happening, right, in the middle of spring break, and they're starting to shut down airports. They're starting to shut down hotels.
Yeah.
So at one point, it got really scary, because it's like, I'm in communication with their mom, and it's like, hey, if you need to stay up there, I would rather you stay up there than get stuck out on the road somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can't pull over and find shelter and find gas, then I need you just to stay up there. And so anyway, they made it back. But there was a point in which, my house is kind of the landing spot, right? Kind of like birds on a power line. You see two, and then next thing you know, there's like four, and then the whole power line is full. That's the way my house is. Like my parents will stop by, and then my nephew stops by, and then my neighbor, and next
It's a
thing
party.
next thing you know, there's 9 people in my house. So anyway, my house has all the food. I cook quite a bit. Like,
Nice.
I barbecue. So anyway, there was this one section of my property where the water would run down off of the house, and it would run off into the corner, which is cool, running away from the house. But because when it rained, there was so much water, it would be this giant puddle, right?
Yeah.
So then, feast or famine, right? It's a puddle in the rain. Then when summertime rolls around, it dries up, and like these massive cracks show up in the ground.
Yep.
Because it's that black land.
Texas soil.
Right. So anyway, it's just this giant mud puddle hole in the ground over in one corner of the yard. And I'd been wanting a koi pond ever since I built the house. And so during COVID, there was one point where none of my I was still in chemical sales at that point. None of my customers wanted me on site because it was just too big of a liability to have somebody come on site who had they almost wanted you to test. Every customer wanted you to have a test done like that morning.
Yeah.
At one point, and my company was like, "No, we're not doing that. We're not."
Heads up.
Yeah, we're not. No, so y'all can do it remotely. Talk people through things remotely. If there's an emergency and something goes down, then go ahead and go on site. But other than that, no, stay at home. So there comes a point where, like, you got 9 people in the house at one point. Okay, well, now what do we do? And my nephew was like, "Well, Unc, you've been meaning to do this you've got the plans already. What's holding you back?" Well, time. Well, now we got time.
You're stuck at home.
So anyway, we put the koi pond in, and we started off with 6 koi and 4 goldfish.
So you just dig a hole, you hop on YouTube, or what? You just make a koi pond?
A lot of that. So I have a very technical background, like installing chemical dispensing systems, working on cars. So I know a lot about how plumbing works, electrical works. Like I did all that stuff myself. And knowing what I know about the fish and their needs, they have to have a certain volume of water. It has to be circulating at a certain rate in order to support them, and that gas exchange has to happen in the water in order to make sure that they have oxygen to live. So knowing those criteria, and my nephew does some contracting work. He went to school for architecture and whatnot. So putting the two heads together, we were able to build this pond. Dug the hole, dug it all by hand, got the liner, the fish safe liner.
Yeah.
And
got a filter in there, a little pump, and
yeah, it's all set up. They've been there. So that was 2020. Snowmageddon happened 21.
What happens when it freezes?
So koi fish are actually very, very resilient. They have the ability to control their metabolism.
Wow.
So as it starts to, like, they're in a feeding frenzy right now because it's spawning season and it's warm. So they're eating a lot. I encourage everybody that comes over to feed the fish because they need it. But when it gets cold, they slow their metabolism down and they go as deep as they possibly can in the water and they chill. So in 21, when we had Snowmageddon, the entire top of the pond had frozen over.
Yeah.
The only thing that was moving was the waterfall, and that's what kept them alive, was the waterfall staying circulating.
Yeah.
And we were still able to. The waterfall is what allowed the oxygen exchange to happen, so that they could still have oxygen at the bottom of the pond. But yeah, there was one point where I hadn't seen them for a week.
Were you getting worried?
I was, because I was like, yeah, well, they're all gone. But no, there was at one point I stood on the top of there was enough ice for me to stand on top of that pond,
Yeah.
and break through it. And no, they were in there.
Where do you buy koi fish from? Like PetSmart?
Yeah, you can buy them from PetSmart.
Oh, really?
Some of the ones that I have are from what we call Blackwater Creek. They're a hatchery. They're a fish hatchery out in Florida, and I had them shipped in because they're the high dollar ones.
Okay.
I don't buy them. I don't buy them big, just because they're too expensive. I buy them when they're a little peanut size, a little bit bigger than a peanut size. But it's really cool to watch them those first year or two, because they like double and triple in size, and it's so cool.
They get big.
Yeah, they do.
Do they reproduce? Like,
yes.
So how many do you have now? Started with like 6?
The koi are a little bit more tricky to reproduce, because they, there's so many different variations of koi that they have to have. They're very specific. But goldfish, on the other hand, no, they're like rabbits.
Like rabbits.
I've got. If you want a goldfish, I can give I can give you a goldfish.
I might take you up on that.
But no, the goldfish. It's really cool to see. Like, usually it'll happen on a full moon. You'll go out there one night and you'll see them moving around doing their little dance or whatever it is, their spawning dance. And then that next morning you'll walk out and you'll see little dots all over the pond. Like little
eggs?
Little fish eggs that have attached themselves to everything around the side of the pond.
You're gonna have to add that to your LLC, little goldfish sale business.
Yeah, very well made at this rate.
Yeah,
but no, it's fun. My kids love it.
I bet.
It's a cool feature to have in the backyard, and that's where my family spends a lot of the time that we're together. Is we're out in the backyard either, and I'm usually on the grill, and I've got a fire pit, and people are hanging out at the pond feeding the fish. And
that's something the kids are going to remember the rest of their life. They're going to think back, it's like, our dad built us a koi pond back in the day. Like, how awesome is that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it.
I love it, James. Well, I think it's about time to eat. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. And I mean, your story's awesome. So
thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so we got to do this again sometime.
Definitely. We can do it at the house. You can show those.
Yeah, we can show the fish.
Yeah.
Show the fish. All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening, and have a great one.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Mike White Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Mike White Pod, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Y'all have a great day.